Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm a bit tall, so I need to adjust the mics. I hope you all are having a very amazing afternoon and morning. You seem a bit low. Let us increase the energy. It's an amazing time to celebrate the youth and everyone. So I would like us to all say hi to each other. I know we're all from different countries. So let's take like 1 minute, introduce yourself to the next person behind you, and make sure you take away a name because I'll be asking one of you guys. So here's your 1 minute. Let me see. Was that enough time? All right, so I said hi to a person from Morocco, Zakaria. Nice to meet you. Yes, that's the person I said hi to. And yes, so we would like to welcome you all once again to the 2023 All-Country CorpsAfrica Conference. And I'm very delighted to be your moderator for this next session. My name is Martina Abera once again. So I would like to be able to introduce my panelists. I'm very privileged to be amidst them. So the first person I'm going to be introducing as they come over on stage is Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah. He is the Minister of Information in Ghana and a Member of Parliament for Ofoase Ayerebi constituency. He is a barrister and a solicitor of the Supreme Court, and at only 41 years of age, he is one of the youngest ministers in Ghana's current government. So before joining politics, Mr. Oppong-Nkrumah had worked with British American Tobacco as a treasury analyst. He has also worked as a treasury and broadcast journalist with Joy FM, of a multimedia group where he hosted the Super Morning Show. Mr. Oppong-Nkrumah attended University of Cape Coast, where he attained a bachelor's degree in commerce. He has an MBA in marketing from the University of Ghana, Legon. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah to the stage. You're very welcome, sir. Yes. My second panelist today is going to be sorry, let me switch position. So my second panelist is Honorable Protais Musoni. He is the chair of Pan-African Movement in Rwanda. He is a Rwandan politician who helped build his country, first as a Deputy Secretary General of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, and then as a governor of Kibungo Province. Honorable Musoni continued his career in the government as the Minister of Local Government for Rwanda, and later as Minister of Cabinet Affairs. Today, he is the chair of the Pan-African Movement in Rwanda. I would like to welcome on stage Honorable Protais Musoni. Yes, so for all the ladies who are in the room, do not worry, we have gender equality. So my next two panelists are two amazing females. I will start by introducing Caren Wakoli, who is the founder and executive director of Emerging Leaders Foundation. She's a certified leadership coach, transformational leadership trainer, and certified with 7 Habits of Highly Effective People trainer, democracy and good governance champion, and a social entrepreneur who delights in mentoring young women and men to be able to achieve their greatest potentials in life. She's able to achieve their greatest, and she's the founder of the executive director of Emerging Leaders Foundation, an organization that nurtures the next generation of ethical leaders for Africa's transformation. I would like to welcome on stage Caren Wakoli. And last but definitely not least, I would like to welcome on stage Bouchra Rahmouni. She is the Director of Social Innovation Lab and COOP Lab and full professor at Africa Business School of University Mohammed VI Polytechnic. Bouchra is the former Director of Research, Partnerships and Event of the Policy Center of New South. She's also an affiliated professor at Sciences Po Paris, and as well as visiting professor at New York University on the Risk of Finance Engineering Department in the USA. Bouchra is a distinguished professor of geopolitics at Grenoble School of Management in France, and so much more. I would like to welcome on stage Bouchra Rahmouni. Yes, so let's quickly get started. These are my panelists. Once again, I would like to thank you all for being here. Maybe if we can give a few seconds for you to be able to say hi to everyone in the room.
Hello, CorpsAfrica. Good morning. First, let me say it's exciting to be here in Kigali, a lovely city, lovely country. And I was telling Liz that we're looking forward to receiving you in Ghana for the next All-Africa Conference.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kojo.
Hello, good morning, CorpsAfrica. I'm appreciative of the invitation to attend this conference. As we know, youth is the future for us all, and I'm excited to get as much advice how to shape the youth we need for Africa.
Hey, Martina.
Hey, Caren.
Really lovely to see you again today.
Lovely to see you as well. You look amazing.
Hi, everyone. So, you know, Martina, I started doing youth development work many years ago, actually about 23 years ago.
Wow.
And there's something I know to be true. Mm-hmm. There is nothing for young people without young people.
Yes.
This panel is going to be discussing about young people playing a role in shaping Africa's future. When I was seated down there, I saw there were 6 chairs on this platform, but one was taken away just a few minutes ago. In the spirit of co-creation with young people and involving young people and supporting young people to take a lead in processes as we follow and as we support them, I kindly, humbly request you to allow us to have the seat that was here to be brought back to the stage, and we have one young person in the audience to come and speak for young people in their own lived experiences and voices. Please.
Yes. Thank you very much, Caren. As we hear from Bouchra, maybe someone can be able to bring the seat.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Rwanda. Good morning, CorpsAfrica. Really, thank you for the opportunity to spend 3 days with a sample of African youth. You know, it was an opportunity to see, the cohesion between African youth, you know, to see the ability of African youth to integrate into communities, and to see also, the ingenuity they've shown, you know, to overcome challenges, cross-cultural challenges based on their stories, you know. Cross-cultural challenges, skills challenges, and really, Africa, or CorpsAfrica volunteers, Africa is proud of you, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. So, any youth in the room who is willing to volunteer to come and take up this seat? Anyone? Don't be shy. We don't bite.
Young people, opportunities are never given. They are taken.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello. Can we have a microphone for this gentleman? Thank you very much for volunteering yourself. Can I please have your name? Maybe you can Please introduce yourself so that everyone in the room can know who you are.
Thank you so much. I'm Sande Bob, CorpsAfrica volunteer, Rwanda. I'm delighted to be with you all. I hope we are going to have a great time. Youth, don't worry. I'm going to speak on your behalf.
That's the spirit. Thank you very much, Sande Bob. He is a youth volunteer with CorpsAfrica. So let us quickly dive into our conversation. We're going to be talking about youth shaping the future of Africa, their contribution, how they can be able to do it, the different advice that they can be able to receive from all the panelists that we have here. So feel free to be able to pose any questions as we are winding up the panel discussion. There will be microphones that will be circulating, so get your questions ready. So I would like to start off with you, Honorable Kojo Oppong, if you do not mind. So as a Minister of Information and a policy maker yourself, how do you think policymakers facilitate the youth in achieving the vision of Africa we want and meeting the goals of the Agenda 2063?
Well, thank you. I think that the very first thing that we want to do, or we need to do, if we want young persons to be part and to take a lead role in shaping the Africa we want, or Africa 2063 as it's been defined by the African Union, is doing exactly what Caren just led us to do, which is having a lot more seats for young people at the table. The 2063 agenda has been defined, silencing the guns and a few other things. But I believe that the vision that Africa needs to lead up to or to live up to is way bigger or goes beyond the silencing of the guns and related matters. It's about development, it's about eradicating poverty, it's about building capacities. But it cannot be done in a meaningful way with the involvement of young Africans without having a lot more seats for young Africans at the table, because that is where you're going to get a new verve of ideas, some new energies, some new directions coming in. I think the second thing that needs to be done if we want a lot of young Africans to participate in defining and building the Africa that we are looking for by 2063 is to assist or to facilitate the capacity building of young Africans. Young Africans need to build, or the youth of Africa need to build our capacities to put us at the cutting edge of dealing with our own challenges here on the continent, and even driving change and delivering of solutions around the world. We need to build some more technical capacity. We need to develop some more soft skills. We need to develop a lot more the culture of service, critical thinking, and problem solving. But all of that can only happen when we create opportunities for young people to build their capacities. One of the things that I've seen CorpsAfrica do, which I find very interesting, is that they equip young people and put them in these communities where they further develop the skills, and it is with these skills that they're able to assist the communities deliver solutions to their most pressing needs, and it couldn't be any different. So one, we need to get more seats for young people at the table. Two, we need to assist the youth of Africa to deepen their capacity. And finally, I think that we need to create more opportunity for young people to do things. Many times when you get into a room of decision makers in Africa, we don't have enough young people being given opportunity to try their hands and make mistakes and fail and learn and correct them and move forward. And so within these three pillars, I think we can begin to ensure that young people are at the forefront of driving the 2063 agenda for Africa.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And just a quick follow-up question. You are not so far from the youth bracket. Do you think there is a difference from back then and today? Is the opportunity much better? Is the situation progressing, or there's still a lot more work to be done?
I think it's progressing. 15 years ago, if you switched on television and you were looking for people of African descent or Africans who are at the forefront of various things, the average age will be way higher than you will find today. So there is progress. But I think that we can double up and do a lot more than we are doing now. Because if you look at the age profile of the continent, Africa is the youngest continent. And so perhaps not just at the top, but even in the middle and at the grassroots levels, we need to have a lot more young Africans at the forefront of driving the change that we are looking for.
Thank you very much. I hope the youth are listening. So over to you, Honorable Musoni Protais. As the chairman of a PAM Rwanda chapter and a former senior government official who has worked as a youth volunteer, what do you believe should be the role of the youth in shaping the Africa that they want, the future Africa?
Thank you. I think the first thing I'm going to do is subtract some 40 years.
From your age.
From my age. To be able to think like the youth.
Yes.
And that reminds me, I will think when I was 28, 29, my mindset of change. There I was thinking and doing. But for starters, let's see the characteristics of youth in Africa. One, everybody knows, over 60% in African population are youth. Youth, as the minister has indicated, have more energy than us old people. And youth can be more innovative than us. They have less baggages. So with that one, I would advocate that the youth should have more opportunities to participate in shaping the Africa we want. So that's for starters. The second point I want to put forward is that the Africa we want can only be created by the Africans we need and have. And since the youth are the majority, we should expect them to be the one with the capacity to really bring the Africa we want then. In what role, as you say? First of all, I would say, can the youth commit themselves to create the citizenry that Africa needs to get to where we want to go? That's, I think you talked about the capacity building, but going out, mobilizing, sensitizing, and pointing that's possible. For the Africans to move from pessimism to opportunism and take the attitude it can be done and do it. That's a major role in the shift of mindset to know we can do it and we shall do it and then commit to do it. The second point, the role I would say is, again, with less baggages, they can connect better and faster. So let them break down the boundaries that we have for our countries by connecting through technology, by exchanging ideas and so on, and creating the identity of the African. Because I'm sure with my old age, I'm more Rwandan than African. I'm sure he's less Ghanaian than... But progressively, we need to create an identity of African more than our boundary countries dictate to us. And I see that one being done by the youth. They have an opportunity to be more technologically driven than we old people. And now if you see the world economy, it is shifting more into technology arena. And again, by giving them more opportunities, by encouraging them into startups and so on, it is very easy to shift the economy of Africa faster than if we leave it to the old generation. So those are a few things I can say: mobilization, investment, and networking.
Thank you very much. So something that I picked from there, it is our responsibility as the youth to be able to create our own identity as Africans. Thank you very much. So Caren, Wakoli, hi again.
Hi.
Yes, so my question to you is, what is the role of the civil society what is the role of the civil society organizations in working with the government as well as the private sector to create sustainable partnerships that support the advancements of the youth in Africa currently?
Thank you for that question, because the truth is, there are many challenges that young people in Africa, just like young people globally, are facing. Government alone cannot resolve those issues. Private sector alone cannot. Civil society alone cannot. We all must come together in a spirit of collaboration and partnership, and together bring our competitive advantages to play that role to make sure that young people are advancing. I will share my own example. I engaged myself within the civil society work as a student activist, student leader in Kenya at the University of Nairobi. I was mentored, I was trained by different civil society organizations, and then later started engaging and representing young people in the government space and government boards. Then within no time, with coaching and mentorship from not just CSOs, but even other spaces and leaders who've gone before me, I then got the chance to serve and represent young people at the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is a critical entity that makes sure that African heads of states are able to peer review each other to make sure there's gender equality, there's inclusion, there's job creation for young people, and many other things. And in the course of that, and again in the spirit of volunteerism, like I am who I am because of support and mentorship and coaching, but also the courage to step out there and be a volunteer, like many of you volunteers have done. I then got elected to serve as the spokesperson for young Africans at the African Union Heads of State Summit in 2011. And that was such a pivotal moment for me that showed me so many things. I was a journalist, but then in that moment, I decided to quit my work in the media to then start focusing on nurturing young people, supporting young people to be the best they can be. For politicians, can they be supported to be great and ethical politicians who put citizens at the center of whatever they do? For civil society organizations, how can we raise awareness of young people and our communities in general and our citizens in our various countries to participate and realize that it's actually our role as citizens to make our voices heard, to hold our leaders accountable, and even to present ourselves forth as leaders. So the role of civil society is right at the center. And for me, in my own capacity, I'm also playing a role to then nurture the next generation of active, service-oriented, values-driven young leaders who will then pass on the baton. Because it doesn't pay to be the person with the microphone and then keep it till I die in old age. Yet there are many more children and young women and young men coming up, brilliant, amazing, like we saw here, the way they were dancing and engaging beautifully. So we have to then, of course, pass on the baton, but the civil society has a clear role to play. And I love what CorpsAfrica is doing. Please, let's just appreciate CorpsAfrica.
Yes. A round of applause.
I see such a complete ecosystem. It's amazing to see parents. That parents joined us today to accompany their children in this journey. What an amazing way to support your children, and what an amazing way for a complete ecosystem by CorpsAfrica. And then we have all this other support. We have the government, we have other entities, institutions, and mentors for the young people. I guess the future is so bright. Thank you.
The future is definitely bright. I like something that you said about being able to pass on the torch. I feel like change definitely needs to be amplified through generation and generation, and that is why we have a youth-filled room here with the parents, and they can be able to pass on the torch. So it's very important that we hear that. Thank you very much. So over to you, Dr. Bouchra. Thank you once again for being here. So my first question is going to be split into two. First of all, how can the youth be actors of change? What can they contribute? And as the generous support of OCP Group, the organization that you represent, that helped kick-start CorpsAfrica, do you think change can be brought about only when there is significant funding?
Okay, so thank you. To answer your question, I would like to share with you two data. I mean, the first one is that the youth represent 60% of African population, and by 2030, I mean, the 42% of global youth will be African. This means that this youth could be, I mean, like a double-edged sword, you know, either a time-ticking bomb or, I mean, actor in driving, I mean, in innovations and social changes. So maybe to get this youth to become agent of change, there is a triptych which is trust, you know, opportunity and metamorphosis, you know. We should trust this youth through involving them in design thinking, in the design of the future of Africa. First, trust them by giving them opportunities, and to enable them to seize those opportunities, we should operate a metamorphosis. And to be more concrete, I would like to share with you what we are doing at University Mohammed VI Polytechnic in Morocco. Because this metamorphosis, there are, I think, two main steps. The first one is the capacity building, you know, I mean, competencies reinforcement. We enable this, I mean, our student and this youth, based on what I've seen during those 3 days in Rwanda also, to build like critical thinking, problem-solving skills, maybe triple bottom line approach, names and faces approach. This, I mean, the impact is that you are training, educating our youth, you know, in order to put, I think, a human being, solidarity at the heart of all projects. Second step is to, I mean, to involve, to push this youth to be effective, or the enablers of effective positive change through, I mean, the test and learn, you know, living labs, and also proof of concept. In other words, I mean, this youth should contribute in the advent of the post-carbon transition, but with human face, you know. They should, I mean, we should give them skills, tools, means, you know, in order to enable them to initiate a virtuous circle of inclusive blue and green growth. I think it's something deeper than create wealth, employment, something deeper than just launch project based on a traditional business model, but it's something related to a new kind of business model, I mean, a hybrid business model. So this African youth should, I mean, act in an innovative way to find solution to discrimination, to, I mean, exclusion, to climate change, and so on.
Yes. Thank you very much for those tips. Maybe to the second question, yes, let me just remind you, do you think there should be significant funding for change to be made?
I think significant funding, I think, come after a pertinent strategy, a pertinent vision. We should have vision in which we should involve this youth, you know, and put, I mean, and have a great ecosystem, I mean, a comprehensive ecosystem, and ecosystem based on, or working based on collective and collaborative intelligence.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. And our last but not least panelist, Sande. Yes, so you are the youth, you have been working with CorpsAfrica, but no one understands problems of the youth better than the youth. So according to you personally, what sort of opportunities do you think the youth should be able to be exposed to currently or in the future so that they can be able to enact change and contribute to the Africa that we want and the agenda for 2063?
Thank you so much for the question. Actually, I want to first pass a vote of thanks to Honorable Kojo. Actually, I've just realized that we are speaking different language. I'm not yet holding any office, but if you understood from fellow panelists, they are doing what they can do, or they are trying to do something to create something significant for the youth. So the voice is more, what can we do for the youth to be incorporated and be inclusive? But to the youth, I would use different lenses and saying, what can we do as youth? At least those who are in the office, at least to have or to find us somewhere going. I'm not going to speak for every country, but at least in Rwanda, government has tried to do their best to create platforms for the youth to participate in. So what as us youth we are supposed to do is just to show some sense of caring, not being indifferent, show some sense of responsibility, ready to carry on and seize the opportunities that are created by different government ministries and entities here and there. So as a youth who served as a volunteer, when I joined CorpsAfrica, it was so amazing. I used to be a young boy, schoolboy, always at school, disconnected from the community. But when I got deployed, I was like, wow. I thought, I talked to my inner person and I said that I was deeply disconnected. And I was wondering, because I have this sense of at least the passion in leadership, but I was like, do everyone who has this idea or who is passionate about leadership deeply know what is happening at the grassroots? Because I got challenged, the spirit was to give back to my community, but I was instead educated by the communities.
Thank you very much, Sande, for that input and for that vision board. So over to you, Honorable Kojo. In your opinion, what are the most pressing challenges that African youth currently face in the shaping of the future of the continent? And as a Minister of Information, what do you think is the role of information currently?
Well, I think it will go back to the very first three themes I spoke about, the major challenges that African youth would have to overcome so that we can take our rightful place in the development agenda has to be with having our voice, our seat in the corridors of decision-making and program and policy formulation, having our own capacity being shored up. And I like the point that was just made that we are energetic and we want to do stuff, but sometimes it takes the community to actually educate us and to bring out of us that potential in what we can do. And then also we're getting some more opportunity. But information, I agree, is a major tool. And it is a tool that allows us to leapfrog the learning curves, which would have, delayed or made it longer over a period for us to achieve our full potential. And today, thankfully, we have the tools that enable us to access a lot more information just at the click of a button and build a lot more capacities just at the click of a button to be able to do more. And so I think what we need to do, again following from the last panelist's comment, is to tap into the tools that are at our disposal to quicken the building of our capacity so that we can do more. A lot of the current tools for information deployment are being misused by Africans and young Africans. If you go on social media platforms, a lot of the things that we are consuming, spending the little money we don't have on, and even producing, are things that don't really advance the causes that we should be advancing a lot more. We're getting into beefs and all sorts of lewd practices on digital platforms, when we can actually use those same platforms for education, information gathering, knowledge sharing, acquisition of skills, that then allow us to do a lot more. So information plays a key role, but I think we need to channel our information production and consumption patterns towards capacity building, towards showcasing the little that we are doing. In my ministry, for example, one of the things that we've introduced is a platform we call Amplified. And it's the use of social media platforms to amplify the work that young people under 40, particularly young entrepreneurs, mostly female, are doing in various parts of the country. And just by myself as minister going into the shop every month of one young person doing some entrepreneurship somewhere and using digital platforms to amplify it to the country, a few things are happening. We're getting a lot of testimony from young people who are saying, my market just went through the roof because of calls that I'm getting because, Minister, you showed up and you put me on social media platforms, and so you got my information out there. They are also telling us about some of their challenges and constraints, which is an amplification of the challenges and constraints that other young people in entrepreneurship are facing. And it serves as feedback to us in policy-making halls to introduce some interventions that can help. Just last week, I visited one young lady who's producing chocolates from her kitchen, and the packaging and the standards are so exciting, and I'm optimistic that when we put her up on the national platform, her business will grow, her concerns will also then get fed back into decision making. So information tools can be used to leapfrog and to do more as young people instead of being used to settle squabbles and beefs and promote all the things that we don't want to be seeing.
Yes, thank you very much. There's a saying that goes that information is power. So it's up to the youth to be able to use the information that they have that is surrounding them to be able to accelerate their growth in one way or another. So thank you very much for those tips. Over to you, Honorable Musoni. What advice would you be able to give the youth to align with the vision and the mission of the Pan-Africanism movement that you chair?
Thank you very much. The vision is that we need an Africa that is integrated. And integration, you understand, culturally, infrastructure-wise, economic-wise, and so on. We want an Africa that is peaceful. We want an Africa that is prosperous, with no poverty, and we want an Africa that is well governed, but above all, an Africa that is dignified in the global arena that can also shape the agenda of the world. So, to align to that vision, I think my young comrade here has brought out a very serious challenge. Sorry, Minister, that you didn't. That, as Nyerere said back in 1964, that Africa is being given education that uproots the youth from society. And what he has really brought out has reworked in me that we need to work on educational systems that creates solution finders to the real problems we have in our communities. How we are going to do it, I don't know. but it's very critical to have that coming in. So that's the first alignment, that it's not your individual social media informed aspirations, but rather aspirations to being a solution provider to the issues of the Africa. Once you do that one, then you'll be aligned. The second alignment is, I mentioned it at my first discourse, shedding off national identities so that you can create that super-African identity and eventually into a human identity that should guide all of us. The last advice I would say for the alignment is, again, I'm going to remove the 40 years again.
Scrape it off for the panel.
And,
the rest
and
of
get
a youth.
An example she gave me. Back when I was 28, and Rwanda, would agonize about the issues of Rwanda and the Banyarwanda sport and so on. Until in one evening, someone suggested that if the world has failed to solve, to give us solutions, we should take the leadership. And the argument was, how do you read your parents? How do you read your leaders? And so we went into serious discussions how to read without being in leadership positions. Through writings, through community leadership creation, not going out to the communities and working with them to create the powers, the capacities to solve their own problems. And we did that one for about 2-3 years. Out of that one, it was recognized that these people can be leaders. And we started moving into leadership positions. So that's another issue, to have that determination that what I see on the African people, I don't want it. And I'm going to stand up to create conditions for the change to happen. And that way you will have the alignment, and you will see, somehow once you are determined, then even resources follow you to where you want to go.
Yes, thank you very much for that tip. I hope the youth were able to take that home. Sometimes we get confused and we are intimidated by our elders, but you just need to have a passion and a path and be able to believe that you too can be able to enact change. So thank you very much for that. Over to you again, Caren. So how do you think we as a unit can be able to foster a culture of civic engagement, volunteerism, as well as active citizenship among young Africans, as a person who has been working with youth for quite some time?
Wow, I would say meaningful youth engagement is critical. A lot of times I have seen society, different sectors engaging young people in a very tokenistic way. Let's say we are designing a program on youth employment as a country or as an organization. And so we go through all the processes of design, and then towards the end, we invite young people and say, okay, so young people, we are creating jobs for you. This is a program for you. What do you think? And at that point, we haven't really listened to them, because then young people know the issues they are going through. Like in Lizzie's speech, you talked about poverty and said, to understand poverty, you have to live through it and sometimes see it, and the volunteers have the chance to see that. And so young people are experts at being youth, so there is definitely need for meaningful youth engagement at all times, from the start to the end. And if they can lead the process, even the better. So one of those ways we can support that among young people, number one, is mentorship. Mentorship is critical. And just by a show of hands, for the people in the room, if you are mentoring at least one young person, intentionally walking with them, journeying with them, hand-holding them, telling them your stories, please just raise up your hand. Okay, wow, there are very few. The rest of us, what are we doing? Oh, they're still young. No. Even the young people mentor other younger people and children. Please, let's democratize access to mentorship. Let's normalize that and make it commonplace that at dinner table, a parent, a dad, a mom can say a positive word and nurture their children. And mentorship is also two-way. It's not just the younger people learning from the older people. The older people also have a chance to learn from the young people. So the reverse mentorship thing happens. So please, let's be intentional and mentor some young people. Surely, if we want Africa to have a different story, if we want our story as Africans to change and be a beautiful story, it's already good, but it can be better. Oh, we have to mentor the younger generation. We have to. Like, there's no two ways. Let us not cling onto power and onto titles and those things that, you know, essentially are neither here nor there. And then time comes, we go, and then we leave a crisis, either in an organization, an entity, an institution. Let's normalize mentorship. Number 2, storytelling. A lot of times I have seen the older generation sharing stories of success and saying, oh, you know, I made it, I'm a millionaire, or I made it, I'm this and that, I'm this minister or this cabinet secretary and all that. But before getting there, there was a process.
Yes.
There was a process. So the power of storytelling and true storytelling in the essence of sharing every part of the story, the dark parts of the story, the process part of the story, which is always about folding the sleeves and doing the work. It's painful. It's about burning the midnight oil. Those stories are critical. Sometimes about failure, that we have failed many times but picked ourselves over and over. That when we share these stories with young people, we support them to see they're not alone and that failure is not necessarily a bad thing. Failure is actually a good thing. In fact, one of my mantras in life is to desire to fail as many times as I can and learn to fail fast and fail better. Because when you lose fear of failure, oh my goodness, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. So let's not fear failure. Let's embrace failure and keep going. As I come to the end, the other ways we can nurture this in young people is somebody talked about training. And of course, in a digital age, my goodness, a lot of things are happening on social media. If we can use social media as a space for good and go there, access information, network, there's so much power in networking. And it's amazing that we have young people from across the continent. Please get to know each other, exchange contacts, call each other up, support each other, visit each other. That's how we grow a movement for change. Intergenerational engagement is also another very critical tool. As we're seated here, we're learning from each other. The older people are learning from the younger people. There's beauty in being young and having reckless abandon. And there's beauty in age. We've seen stuff, we've had stuff, we've gone through stuff. Those two things merging, it's so powerful. And there's a question you asked the doctor about whether we actually need a lot of funding to create change. To the young people, I'd say no. Funding is good, money is good, but what we need the most is ideas, it's the vision, it's the passion. Money will come later. Money will follow creative ideas. So please have the ideas and fan the flames of change within your heart and keep going. Money will come later, but we do not need money first to start to lead change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caren. You said so many important things, but one of the things that stood out for me is storytelling. A lot of times, especially in this day and age, the things that we see on social media, everyone is just posting their success stories. And at the end of the day, you may go home and feel intimidated and you feel like, that's not what I'm going through right now. But we need to understand that social media is designed to only show the beauty of life. So everything has a beginning, the process, which is the journey, and the destination. So we need to understand that we need to fail to be able to succeed. succeed, and that's just part of life, and that's just part of the success story. So just because someone is prospering does not mean you won't prosper as well. So thank you very much for highlighting that. Yes, so over to you, Dr. Bouchra. As the leader of the Social Innovation Lab, what are some of the unique and maybe unconventional approaches you've seen African youth take to address the social challenges in their communities?
Thank you. Maybe to answer this question, the answer will be linked to your first question related to funding. Because you asked that OCP is the main funder for many initiatives. But what we should maybe, or I should highlight, is that within OCP, it is what we call a transformative ambition. You know, a transformative ambition means that we need, you know, to envision a new cycles, a new curves of, improvement. And related to our topic, I think we need to first work to be innovative, to, I think, enable our youth to have a global mindset. A global mindset, globally, or to have a global knowledge, you know, or global skills, global knowledge, but also locally to build an intimacy with Africa is very important. And this is, I think, what CorpsAfrica succeeds in doing, because you have Moroccan youth, you know, involved in project in Rwanda, Senegalese involved in project in Morocco, and I met a Rwandese young girl telling me I was in Tata in Morocco, you know, the southern part of Morocco. So this is the global, as I've mentioned, a global mindset. But there is another,
Thank you so much. I wouldn't, I think, say it any better. Honorable Kojo and Doctor actually emphasized some key things I wanted also to talk about in regard to your question. Most of the time, youth needs the space platform to be able to showcase what they are able to do. Because everyone here as a youth, they have ideas, and they are here because it's their choice. If they never made this choice, they couldn't be here in this room. So they have youth are ready to make different choices, and they have ideas. All they need is just to reach out, meet them where they are, see what they are doing, promote, support, and mentor them on how to actually make these things these things better, and how they can improve, because having idea is one, but also the way you sell it, the way you make it materialize needs some experts, and that's what we need from local government, experts, CEOs to come and help us have this bigger picture of what is needed at the market for the youth to be able to participate and contribute in their country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just related to platform, and maybe to continue answering your question. You know, within UM6P, we have like, you could maybe called an innovative way doing things, because we have what we call the Department of Venturing and Entrepreneurship and the Social Innovation Lab. You know, and within Social Innovation Lab, we co-define, based on three-sector leadership, you know, and multidisciplinary approach, we co-define problems, issues, and we co-construct solutions, but the Department of Entrepreneurship and Venturing, you know, prepare youth, prepare students, prepare start-uppers, you know, to launch projects in order to be involved in, you know, the solutions we co-construct within Social Innovation Lab. And as I've mentioned during the discussion with Liz 2 days ago, that we are involved in many sectors, in hospitality and tourism, education, health, agriculture, you know. This means that there is a link. This is what I call, and what I've mentioned, that is, we should have a comprehensive approach. And I think this is very important when you have all stakeholders around the same table.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. Back to you, Honorable Kojo. Now, we're living in an era where everything is digitalized and there is so much technological advancement. So in what ways can African youth be encouraged to embrace the technological advancements and digital innovation to drive a sustainable development and transform various sectors in Africa, in your opinion?
I think a combination of things, because the themes we are talking about will not change. If it comes to getting input from African youth, we have to use technology and innovative tools to get a lot more input as part of the various instruments of getting input. At the Information Services Department, which is an agency under my ministry, one of the things that we've set up is a whole new research division. And what that research division does is to do empirical research across the country to get the views of Ghanaians on various matters, policies, programs, developments, etc. And when you mine that data, particularly for what young people think, or even if you segregate it according to gender, you get a deep dive sense of what the majority of the population, which are young people, would want to see us move towards. So one of the first things is, in terms of using tools and innovative tools to bring young people into the space, we can do a lot more targeted research, working with young people to find ways of bringing them in. I also think that what we need to do is to invest in two things. A, the spaces where young people can build their technology competencies to do more in the future. So a lot more technology hubs, a lot more investment in maths, engineering, science, technology, and innovation, so that young people in general are equipped with technology and are equipped with the basic skills in these hubs with which they can do a lot more generally for themselves and for the world out there. But then secondly, to invest in programs and opportunities that cause these young people to bring the technology and skills that they are learning and building into application. So you are not just, creating more spaces for young girls to learn STEM and, young people to go into technology hubs, but you are now bringing them into some practice spheres where they can use the kind of technology that you are investing in and exposing them to solve local problems. There's a program that we're running in my constituency currently. My constituency is a farming constituency. Cocoa farming has been our major thing. One of the things that we've just started working on is to pick 107 young people who are unemployed and to put them through a program where they can learn the modern skills using technology, etc., of cocoa farming, an acre each, so that's about 107 acres of cocoa. And the revenues from that can help improve their own livelihoods and the livelihoods of the community. But embedded in that is an exposure to technology tools that are going to help us to do baseline data gathering, tracking of these programs as they go along, so that the kind of results and learnings from the mistakes that are being made will be faster than it would have been without all of this technology. So you invest in technology, you're investing in opportunities that allow them to use this technology to solve real problems, and then at the same time you are using their input and their feedback using technology to redesign or to improve the kind of process flow moving forward. And I think that in between these, we can do a stronger triangulation between technology, young people, the opportunities and problems out there.
Yes. Thank you very much for that insight. Over to you, Honorable Musoni. In your opinion, what are the top three skills that you think, or qualities that the African youth should cultivate to effectively contribute to the development and the transformation of Africa, or the Africa that they want?
That's a hard one. I think what comes to my mind quickly is curiosity, wanting to learn constantly. Because when you are learning that you innovate to find solutions. So that's, to me, would come as the top quality of the human resources. I think knowledge comes top in making somebody useful to himself and to society. So that's why I would say top quality would be that one. The second would be critical thinking, to be able to look at what you see and look at the causes, so that you know the mother of the causes is what, and that will help you to get the solutions into that one. Now, with that one, then I would bring in discipline, self-discipline. I think across the panel, it has been talked about in another form. Discipline to even get off the ground when you fail, and keep going until you get to the objective. That is very important. Discipline to know the priorities you have in your life that will contribute to the social advancement and towards the vision of Africa, as we were talking about. And then discipline to know that you are one among the many, that you need to know you have certain resources others don't have, but others have those which they don't have. And when they come together, they produce good things for all of you. So I would put that one, knowledge acquisition constantly, critical thinking so that you don't provide the wrong solutions to problems, and then the discipline in action to make sure that you achieve what you want to get to.
Thank you very much. So 3 tips: curiosity, critical thinking, and discipline. I hope the youth were able to note those down. Thank you very much for that. So over to you again, Caren. In your experience, because I believe you have quite some experience, what are some of the effective ways the African youth can be able to engage with policymakers, government officials, to ensure their voices are heard and their ideas are implemented in shaping the future of Africa? And if you can, please share any of success stories that you're able to experience or hear.
Thank you so much for that. I'll start with curiosity. Honorable member, what you mentioned about curiosity. I believe there's something so powerful about a curious mind. When someone does not settle, because when we settle, we lose out on something. But the moment we allow our minds to be curious, to ask questions, why are things the way they are? Why can't they be different? Why am I the way I am? Can I do things differently? But a curious mind is really, really powerful. African youth, or young people in Africa, please remind me your name.
Sande Bob.
Sande Bob. Thank you so much. In your sharing, you said something really powerful that points to a curious mind and also taking personal responsibility. You talked about your journey. You got to a point where you were asking questions and, got to where you are today. I'd like to remind young people that nothing just happens. Things are made to happen. There has to be intentionality for us to achieve our dreams and for us to make things to happen. Things don't just happen. Just like you have shared, taking time to reflect as leaders, as human beings, is really critical. I look at people who've gone before us, like Nelson Mandela, Steve Biko, Sekou Toure, Patrice Lumumba, Wangari Maathai. Things were not easy for them. Things were not easy for them. They were young, maybe even younger than most of us in the room. But they realized the call on their lives, the call on their generation, and stood up and did what they knew, or started learning how to do what they needed to do. And that can only happen when there's a level of personal responsibility. There's collective responsibility, but there's also personal responsibility. Are you happy with where you are? Are you happy with your life? Are you happy with the situation you find yourself in? Are you happy with everything in your nation? Or are there things you can begin to do at a personal level to make a change, to inspire, to encourage somebody, to just make things to change? Because Africa is not going to change, and especially unless we shift our mindsets. A lot of times I have interacted with individuals and African leaders and African human beings who sit back and wait for change and transformation and help to come from elsewhere. Yet we have the power. Look at our beautiful culture. Our language is a gift. It's a powerful tool. And I love the fact that right now, all Africans are learning to speak Swahili. That's a really, really powerful tool. So those little things about self, about discipline that you talked about the mind, about how we relate with each other, it's really powerful. There's a South African term called Ubuntu, that I am because you are. You are because I am, and therefore we are. That how I live my life and the decisions I take actually, eventually, would impact on somebody else. So would we sort of pursue common good for each and every one of us and just be good African citizens? There's a price to be paid. And for young Africans, my question to you is, are you ready to pay the price for the call on your generation? And even on your own life, are you ready to pay the price? Because there's a price to be paid. Leadership is sacrificial. Leadership is not about the titles, though, even though titles are there and all that. But I have seen amazing leaders with no titles. I have seen amazing leaders with no titles. And you do not need a title to lead or to lead change. And you know, today you're young. Tomorrow you're not young anymore. Tomorrow has its own young and, children. So the one gift we have is time. The one gift young people have is time. Please make use of your time. And you asked about a success story. You know what? I believe I have lived a purposeful life. I believe, and I was lucky enough, but also I had a curious mind to discover my mission and my purpose when I was young, so that then I started engaging at a young age. And you also asked about how can young people sort of begin to engage with policymakers and in uninvited spaces and invited spaces. Curiosity is key. Taking responsibility is another. Self-training and even signing up for courses to understand, for instance, how do you negotiate? For instance, today, if Parliament called and said, we want to hear the voices of young people on this policy, are young people organized enough, and do they know how to engage that they will get to Parliament and raise their voice in a responsible way that then in future, the older generation and the senior citizens will say, you know what, we have to have young people in the room. There has been a misconception that young people are rowdy, they're thugs, they're this and that, they don't know what they want, they're confused, but that is not true. That is not true. And of course, with capacity building, everybody can learn to communicate well, to negotiate, and to present the ideas of young people. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caren. And another opportunity of youth being able to engage with policymakers is Sande, the opportunity he just had to come and interact with honorables and distinguished guests. So that's that. And let's listen to Caren. We don't need to be presidents to lead change. So the slightest thing can be able to contribute to your ability to enact change. So let's just start with our surroundings and given the opportunities that we have. So over to you, Dr. Bouchra. In your opinion, in what ways do you think can philanthropy and collaboration between different stakeholders support and amplify the efforts of African youth in shaping the future of Africa?
I think to reach this objective is very important to ensure and succeed in convergence between all stakeholders, which means to bring all of them around the same table in order to make them, speak with the same voice. Because to avoid waste of time, waste of energy, and waste of money. This is what we are experiencing, for many projects in Morocco, that like when we launch a project around the table, we have all stakeholders. We have the funders, we have authority, because it's about regulation, funders it's about financing. We have civil society, we have the target. It could be farmers, it could be needs, it could be, disabled people, it could be people working in hospitality, etc. And we make them meet around the same table, and this enables us to come up with what we call the stakeholders mapping and the mapping of stakeholders' interests, in order to make those interests to be, convergence of those interests. And you can't imagine that at the end of the day, we come up with a strategy, comprehensive and coherent strategy. There is also other kind of stakeholders. If we talk about CorpsAfrica, maybe Social Innovation Lab, what I noticed that within Social Innovation Lab we have what we call, the impact value chain. Starting by the co-definition of the problematics of issues. And the first step is to engage discussion, conversation with communities, And I think we can launch other kinds of, collaboration between stakeholders. It could be at local level, at national level, regional level, and continental level. So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. A round of applause for that. Over to you, Sande. As a youth, like I said, you know the problems that the youth face, but in your opinion currently, do you think youth engagement in such spaces has increased? Do you think the number of the youth that are attending such spaces of involvement and engagement and contribution towards the growth of their nations, the continent, has the number increased, or there's still a lot more to be done for the youth to be able to partake in such activities?
I think there is a lot needs to be done when it comes to creating platforms and spaces for the youth to participate. And also the need to match the words and the ministry agendas with the youth. Sometimes you find that the agendas and policies are good, well described, the target is clear, but when it comes to matching the policy and the need and how to reach out to these youth and creating the platform for them to be incorporated, there is some disparity. I think we need to, as policymakers, the people in the office, they need to match this gap of creating more spaces and avoiding or minimizing the disparity between the words and the policies and what is in the grassroots.
Thank you very much. That's very important. So, Honorable Kojo, how can the youth be actively involved in the development through volunteerism?
We just have to get up and volunteer.
It's as easy as that.
It's as easy as that. We just have to get up and volunteer. I visited a community known as Anyo Junction near Cape Coast in the central region of Ghana, and I met a young man called Daniel. He's one of the CorpsAfrica volunteers. He is the volunteer for the community. There's a young man who is a person living with disabilities. He's from northern Ghana. He doesn't speak the language of the community, but left northern Ghana, came down there into southern Ghana. He's been living in the community, and though he didn't or doesn't speak the local language, he's been working with them, providing community support, and they are building a school to provide education for some of the young people in that school. And it reminded me of a 2007 publication by Alice Walker. I think I referred to it yesterday when we were at Rolindo, that we are the ones we have been waiting for. There's no group of elders somewhere up there who have a bag of solutions that they are going to drop down to solve the problems around us. There's no colonial power that is coming to save Africa.
There's no higher power.
There's no higher power. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And nothing beats just getting up and going out there and starting the exercise of trying your hands at it. You will make mistakes. It won't be perfect from day one, but in trying and trying and trying again and correcting it, we're going to be able to build that capacity to help resolve some of those issues. So it's just as easy as just getting up, going out there and volunteering and doing your best at it. When the president of Ghana invited me to be a deputy minister at the age of 35, I had never held such an office before. I had no clue how to go about it. When a year later, when I was 36, when he asked me to become the substantive minister, I had no idea how to actually administer that office. But when it dawned on me clearly that there was nobody with a cape coming to save me, I needed to just put my hands to the wheel and do it. I built a team of young people around me. My average secretariat staff age, I think, is about 30 years. Just a team of young people who are crazy and passionate. Let's do it. We may not get it right from the beginning, but we'll do it and do it and do it and do it and do it again until we get it right. So to young people out there, I'd say, let's just go out there, let's just volunteer, let's try it, let's make mistakes. We'll get it right somewhere down the line.
Thank you very much. Let's get our hands dirty is the moral of the story. Yes. So, Honorable Musoni, as a Pan-Africanist, what do you consider to be some of the key challenges that the African youth face today? And in your opinion, how do you think they can be able to overcome these obstacles and realize their full potential?
Thank you very much. There are many and diverse, depending on different countries you are in. If you are in Somalia, you are in Sudan, you are in Congo, Eastern Congo, and so on, then the biggest challenge is going to be security. Somewhere else you have famine and so on, so that's another challenge. To think out the collective challenges, partly I would say they are not of their own creation. The one which Sande revealed to us, to be uprooted, disconnected from the society issues, is a very big challenge. Because once you are disconnected, you cannot be a solution provider. So we shall have to find a way, or the ministers, and other members of the societies, we find a way of creating educational curriculum that goes with voluntarism. And I'm sure you know, even our voluntary action of Umuganda, the youth are disconnected. Even in Rwanda, the youth are disconnected. So that disconnect, I think, is very serious. But it's not their creation. It's how they are being taught in school. In the voyeuristic way of thinking about yourself, And the second one is disregarding the assets we have. When I see young boys and girls dying in the Mediterranean and leaving quite a lot of assets on the African continent, you see that conditioning of the mind to negate what you have and try to run to what you don't have is also a challenge that we have to work at it, on that mindset change through voluntarism and so on. The third one, which most of us have it anyway, fragmentation. We are fragmented in the view of Africa, the view of the world. We don't put it together so that we really understand it and say how we're going. She brought a very good stakeholder analysis and say, I want to go this one, but this one can assist me. This is likely to block me. When I discuss with our young about the aspects of transformations of the African, now they come back and say, no, Lumumba was killed, Nkrumah was killed, Abera was killed, Nasser was killed. Huh? You want also us to die? And if you are looking at a transformative agenda, you cannot fear death. Because it means even where you are almost dead. If you cannot advance, you are dead. So that superficial commitment to change is the challenge the youth and some of us have that we need to work on so that we have that commitment. You go into something, you want to do it. Another challenge that is not, well, we come back to capital. Definitely, what I have accumulated, a young person of 25 doesn't have. So there's that capital that has to be brought together so that people with ideas can get the capital. But I will come back to what was mentioned. And I have the experience that even when you are aspiring for a big resource-needed journey, you can start with very little and try to build more the human resources, that's the commitment, the knowledge, the skills, and the working together, the community of things. You will find the money coming. I have that experience. I can give my personal journey through life. I have seen where poor people giving very little amounts to very big sums that make changes in this country, for example. It happened, and it's still happening. So there should not be faint, because again, every time when we discuss, I'm sure my colleagues are here, every time we discuss, an idea comes and says, but I don't have capital. But no, you can start with what you have. Start small, and then grow it. And that's the only way we can move forward on that one. So the last one, challenge that we have, now I'm also talking as a youth, is dependence on knowledge. We don't find a young African mind wanting to create solutions. I think, I know you had M-Pesa from Kenya, but all other solutions you find are globally. And when you are implementing them, they are not as compassionate to you as the one who has used them and found that one. So it's critically important to to release their creative mind so they can provide the solutions that goes with the conditions of Africa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Musoni. Thank you very much for that. Now, over to you, Caren, very quickly. How can the civil society...
In actual fact, I challenge our researchers in the universities.
Yes.
Said, look at all solutions we are getting from the East and the West. Where is our solutions from you? And on analysis, we found they do researches so that they send them to Europe for accreditation, not researchers to provide solutions to our problems. So again, it comes to education systems we have. How do we create learners and teachers that are focused on our problems?
Yes.
Solution.
Thank you very much. Maybe about the education part, Caren is going to talk about it briefly. How can civil society organizations support education and skills development of young Africans, particularly in areas such as leadership, entrepreneurship, and digital literacy? Briefly.
I would, again, pick up from where you left off. Research. I think for a long time we've designed solutions and projects and things like those on hearsay, not on factual data and information. Like for instance, what's the rate of youth unemployment in Africa? How many young people have skills? How many do not have skills? How many dropped out of school? How many young women have jobs? How many young persons with disability have jobs or do not have jobs, have skills, do not have skills? That study is critical to then shape policy. And civil society and, of course, learning institutions of higher learning have a key role in that. So information and actual data and information is critical to drive change. And I would actually say that CSOs should also then be data-driven in terms of designing the projects they design, because then only in that way are we able to have impact. Number two, monitoring and evaluating what we do, because sometimes you have a clear path to a solution, but then you reach along the way and realize, no, things are not working the way we thought they would, or we're not receiving the results we thought we would receive. So it's important to do evaluation, monitoring, reporting, but the most critical component is engaging the communities in just finding out what is the issue, what is the problem, what do you think is the solution, how is this working, how can we change this? But again, a lot of times, different sectors come up with solutions designed elsewhere and say this community needs water and give the water to the community or to the village without realizing that, oh, it's actually a different problem that is more critical, than that. So evaluation, reporting is critical. Community participation is also very, very important. And of course, just showing up. I believe showing up is really critical. And I believe as well that transformation happens when we show up, even when we do not know. Because not every person, even the topmost person at the nation or an organization, has the answers. Sometimes we do not have the answers. But just by showing up and saying, what can we do together? What do you think is the solution? What do you think we can do? How can we experiment here and there? Just showing up and being vulnerable and true and authentic, it makes a difference. Most importantly, I think, and this is not just for civil society or the government or private sector or any other sector for that matter, modeling what we talk about is critical. Because a lot of times we say we're holding government to account, we're making noise about this and that, but when you come into our own private spaces, in our organizations, how do we manage resources? How do we manage finances? Are we accountable? Do we listen? Do we genuinely listen to understand, or we listen with the intention to just respond? So the most critical thing is to also just lead by example. Yes. Be what we say people should be. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's show up and lead by example. So, Dr. Bouchra, if you don't mind briefly, could you share some innovative ideas or initiatives that you have come across which have the potential to positively transform Africa?
To unleash the potential for Africa, as I've mentioned, you asked me the question, I answered it that yes, innovative way, that innovative approaches, and innovative adapted approaches to our culture, you know, to our beliefs, you know, and is very important, and to, I mean, approaches, you know, based on the proximity, to be linked to the African youth. And so the innovative way is to enable African youth to shift from job seekers, you know, to job providers. Yeah, providers. To be, I mean, people who will bring, you know, dignity and inclusivity, not inclusion, because when we are talking about inclusion means that there is a dominant and dominee, but inclusiveness means, I mean, that we are equal and we can learn from each other. Also approaches based on diversity, you know. Please keep in mind that our strength is our diversity. And there are many studies showing that the, you know, multinational, big companies, you know, who are succeeding, competitive, and, I mean, having the huge amount of turnover are, I mean, companies, you know, believing in diversity. I would also just share this, idea that we should, keep in mind that we have a common past and shared future is very important. And just to quote His Majesty the King, Mohammed VI, he told, Africa should trust Africa, is very important in order to enable the co-emergence, the co-development, and the co-creation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. Now, as we wind up, I would like to ask the last question to each of the panelists. Let's start with you, Sande Bob. What message would you like to give your fellow participants here? Maybe something that you think can build them as a takeaway.
Thank you so much. The advice I can give is that one of fellow panelists talked about it, to be inquisitive, be eager to know things. Because if there is nothing that can wake you up, then I don't know if you'll get something to feed you. So be inquisitive, ask questions, reach out, let your mind work, and also have the trust that you can do it. Others have made it from zero to somewhere. Why not you? Give it a shot, use your mind, read, do something, and even when you need a help, at least people can find you somewhere going, and they'll be glad to support something that is already in place. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
And my last word is don't forget seniors, because we are talking about youth, African youth, but seniors are very important to help us to overcome, you know, paradoxes, African curses. So please don't forget seniors in order to preserve our African heritage and culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra. And over to you, Caren.
I'd say society is actually waiting on each and every one of us to live out our purposes, because each and every person in this room has a purpose, something special that only you can do and be in the manner only you can do and be. Please find that something. Find that something that makes you wake up in the morning, that makes you refuse to give up even when things are thick. That's something that sort of fans that fire inside your heart and lights up that fire around you. Please find that something, because imagine that there are men, women, young people, and children out there just waiting on you to live out your purpose for them to move to the next level. And if you don't, then it becomes a challenge. and it's a race every human person is on. And I leave you with a South African song. It's called Running the Race. And I know many of us know it. There is a race that I must run. There are victories to be won. Give me power every hour to be true. This is a race we're on, and may we be true in our race. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caren. I would also like to give the opportunity to Honorable Musoni to give a last message as we wind up to the participants.
First, apologies.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
When the body starts crumbling, there are certain things you cannot hold. So the rest?
The last message as we wind up.
Oh, okay. Possibly I can give advice to the volunteers, the many. By the way, I wish we can have as many as millions and millions. Very many. In Rwanda, I think we have community volunteers, and we were aspiring to have as many as possible to fight against that disconnection between society and the future leaders. And I think when I talked to Esther, I think we can make a good combination so that we accelerate it in Rwanda to as many people as possible. But the advice I would give them, the advice I was given long ago, issue of humility, that you have to commit suicide. You have to die before you become a good volunteer who can get the trust of the people so that you can eventually live sustainability. When you go with the notions that you are educated, university graduate, you know it all, most likely you'll go through the emotions of community development, but you won't leave much behind. So that's the advice I would give. That the second one, really, the Africa you want will be achieved. There is no question about it. It shall be achieved. But it shall be achieved until a critical mass of the Africans abhor the conditions of Africa. If as many of us as possible feel as if we are cheated to keep being the poorest continent, the most ill continent, most fights, aren't we? Most wars on the continent. Peace and security, poor governance, human rights. You see the rankings of Africa and you say, aren't we as good as others? What are we missing? What should we do? So as we go into community development, volunteering, let us also keep thinking the Africa we want to create, which will be good for our grandchildren. Thank you. And your children.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Honorable Kojo.
Let me take advantage of this opportunity to thank CorpsAfrica and all here for the opportunity to be on this panel and to learn all of these lessons that have been shared. I think it's edifying for all of us who are here. My last word will be to the volunteers, and it's a simple word: service. Continue serving. You're on the right path. Continue serving. It is the only way you can really make impact in the lives of your fellow Africans. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. And once again, I would like to thank my panelists, Honorable Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, the Minister of Information from the Government of Ghana, Honorable Musoni Protais, the Pan-Africanist Movement Chair and Rwandan Chapter. Thank you very much. Caren Wakoli, the Founder and Executive Director of Emerging Leaders Foundation Africa and Interim Executive Director of Emerging Public Leaders. Thank you once again. I would also like to thank you very much, Dr. Bouchra Rahmouni, the Director of Social Innovation Lab. And last but not least, thank you very much, Sande Bob, for being part of this panel. Yes, so and I would like to thank All Country, CorpsAfrica, together with MasterCard Foundation for this opportunity for everyone in this room to learn. And I would like to remind everyone that there is a lunch, so please do not go very far. Lunch will be served right outside. Continue to enjoy your day, and thank you very much for listening.